All units, we are after the suspect.
That's enough. Dead sake.
Control, I'm ready to immobilize the target.
Get the fuck out of the way.
I'm putting an end to this. Over.
Ever since I mistook 2014's Watch Dogs as a sandbox game where you take on increasingly difficult pet walking missions, kinda like a canine-based crazy taxi, I've just been fascinated with this franchise. In the fullness of time, I became a fan of the first two installments in this hacktastic power fantasy. And hey, as of now, I've spent 6 hours with the follow-up, absolutely humping the leg of Watch Dogs Legion. And those hours were completely unleashed. I wasn't caged in the usual virtual kennel that is a tightly controlled, PR scripted demo. With no such choker chain, I was allowed to chase whatever passing car I wanted, to maul any NPC I didn't like the look of. Basically, I gave this game a damn good sniff, and now I'm ready to tell you if it's up to snuff. But first, give me half a second to point out some things about this video. First, everything is segmented into topic labeled chapters on that play bar. Topics like the following. Secondly, the visual quality of this video admittedly it's not up to my usual 4K standard, and you can thank good old COVID-19 for that. I had to play this via remote streaming as opposed to a locally based debug. Now, the consequence of that is just lower than usual visual fidelity and probably the odd frame rate flutter. Lastly, it's also my policy to slot in large chunks of gameplay where I just shut the hell up and let the game speak for itself. And to prove that I'm not full of crap, here's some of that now.
You've been activated. Do you need a minute?
Oh, me and my tits are always ready to go, Bags. Asshole!
Absolutely not. Jesus.
You're more than just pathetic. You're dog shit.
That's
Knobhead.
I'm gone. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Absolutely.
My shit looks and smells better than you, so just back the fuck off.
Deep breath, stand back and look at yourself.
Knobhead. You think the whole world revolves around you, yeah? Selfish brat. You're a joke.
Rubbish. Here we go.
You little shit.
You've stepped over the line.
You're more than just... Asshole!
Possible suspect or suspects. Reporting
Control, need medical assistance at my location. Over. Be advised, we are on the track. This is taking longer than expected. Over. Control, bring forward all cars. Escape. To arrest the suspect. Anyone have visual?
Hunt him down.
Anyone?
Drone, begin search. Return to HQ. This is pointless.
Alright, let's take a quick minute to get you up to speed on the basic plot of Legion and the bold vision Ubisoft has for this third installment. I describe Watch Dogs Legion as a game about ordinary heroes putting aside their differences in order to stick it right up the man. Obviously, when creative director Clint Hawking and his team sat down a few years back to hash out their down with fascism tale, it probably read as semi-plausible fiction. Today, weirdly, it's looking downright prescient. But you know what? I'm not here to chase my tail arguing politics and current affairs. What interests me is what could be one of Ubisoft's most groundbreaking games in ages. You have this freedom to recruit literally any AI pedestrian you want as your next foot soldier. Also, and this is a personal preference, I just love the setting of this sandbox. Old Smoky, you know, fish and chips, cup of tea, bad food, worse weather, Mary frickin' Poppins, London. And let me tell you, when it comes time to get your V for Vendetta on, you'd better hand out those proverbial Forks masks to the right people. Because while the Watch Dogs series has always been about trying to hold those in power accountable, the stakes are so much higher here, and the good guys have never been more short-staffed. The hacker collective known as DedSec is close to extinction, and the movement has to evolve beyond being, I don't know, a bunch of meme-loving pranksters into a full-blown do or perma die, vive la resistance. The grey skies of London are going to get proper illuminated as you and your band go into open warfare against the opportunists and the authoritarians who have seized the home of Big Ben by the Yarbles. Being in DedSec used to be a in-it-for-the-lols kind of fun ride. Now it's turning into a bad day in Bosnia. It's also worth noting that while a ton of secondary characters in your campaign story will obviously differ greatly from someone else's depending on who you recruit, some major characters will be common across everybody's playthrough. Quick example, you're all going to be seeing an opening with Dalton Wolf, a spy who moonlights as a DedSec operative. Through him, you'll be present at the inciting, catastrophic event that will introduce you to a mysterious somebody who, if I may use an unrelated DC Universe reference, subscribes to the old League of Shadows newsletter. He or she thinks that London has reached a pinnacle of corruption and decadence, so they're going to hard reset everything in an event that becomes known as Zero Day. A few months later, Old Blighty is on the verge of collapse, and so a dodgy PMC known as Albion has swooped in. Worse, the local scumbags known as Clan Kelly have stepped up from petty crime, charming the paint off walls, and picking peanuts out of poo, to outright terrorising the common citizen in the street. From here, gameplay begins proper as you and a few of the OG DedSecers who somehow managed to escape the Albion Purge set about rebuilding things. Every borough in London is teeming with people who may need some convincing, usually done via a randomly generated loyalty mission. There are just as many folks out there who are itching to rise up and take their city back. Because frankly, they just fail to see the correlation between getting organ harvested by criminals, curb stomped by the causers, and a good deal.
Hostile at your location. Control, we have a visual on the suspect.
Ducking and dodging.
Control to all units, possible hostile near your location.
Hey, you shouldn't be here.
Got it. Watch for hostiles, people.
Click, boom, done. Don't fuck around here.
Keep looking.
Spider out.
Stand down! In the car, I'm a body bug. Which one?
I say again, in pursuit.
Shit. Where are they?
received. We are in pursuit.
Think you're first on this scene.
Any other patrols
So while the
have eyes on
default
suspect?
controls have sort of swapped around a little bit since the last game, as you can see here, the gameplay on offer in Legion is very much like what's gone before. Every character in the world gets issued with a hacktastic phone, and that's basically a superpower in a city as interconnected as this near-future version of London. For example, automated traffic systems can be bent to your will during a high-speed pursuit, and providing you have the patience for mini-puzzles and skulking about, a shrewd player can effectively Sam Fisher their way in and out of a facility, while weaponizing its defenses against the security forces within. If you've got the skills, you can nail that objective without firing a shot. You should also know that every recruitable NPC out there will come with a non-lethal firearm as standard, plus a randomized gadget, which I'm going to detail in a minute. What makes Legion special is the sheer number of class archetypes out there that you can just roll into your DedSec team. Their various roles in society come with unique perks that will radically change the way you play. And you should also know about the odd downside that might just cock up a mission for you if you ignore the liability it presents. Because hey, it might be cool having an 80-year-old spy, but it's not so fun when you realize, oh, she can keel over dead from a heart attack at any point. That could be a problem. And hey, never forget, the average git on the street, no matter how passionate they are for change, isn't a dyed-in-the-wool killer. The majority of your recruits will come standard with non-lethal gats, and so far as I saw, there was just no option to scoop up anything more powerful from any soldier that I put to sleep. Essentially, your Joe Schmo is just gonna have to make do as they run a gauntlet of long black machine guns that have war criminals attached to their triggers. Now, the save file that I was given actually had a few people all ready to go. I already had a protest leader, a lighting technician, and a counter-terrorism agent just waiting in the wings. The first chap had a megaphone to effectively put nearby NPCs into a violent frenzy. Once I got the party started, I could then chuck tear gas around because I also had a mask that protected me from it. And I wish I could say the same for the people that I just made friends with. The second lass was an ex-crim with an interest in breaking people's faces. Plus she had an area of effect shockwave punch and expert counter-punching skills. Side bonus, she also had an existing vendetta with the Kelly gang, which effectively gave her a stat boost whenever beating someone from the same said faction. Lastly, the CT dude was essentially this unique hacker who could either turn enemy drones into his own lethal pets, or just make them ignore him completely. Dude was a ghost. Meanwhile, it had been clear that whoever owned the save file had also gone on a bit of a window shop, because there are a bunch of saved profiles for potential recruits just walking around. And I'm talking a construction worker with unfettered building site access, plus a summonable cargo drone, a big F-off wrench for just stoving in faces, and the high damage fun of just owning a nail gun. Less amusing, but still quite important, was a lawyer class and a police superintendent, and they could effectively just serve as a get-out-of-jail-free card for any of my operatives that managed to get themselves nicked. Absolute pick of the litter, however, goes to the professional hitman, who came packing a deagle and a G36 assault rifle. Plus he had these crowd-pleasing moves, like gun carter executions, and a super handy commando role for Dark Souls-style evasion. It wasn't all good news though, because there was a catch with the latter guy. He had an active dislike of DedSec, so the mission I had to do to acquire him was a small chain, rather than a simple one and done for everybody else. That said, being able to actually unload some bullets and spill some claret was totally worth it. And hey, speaking of juice that is worth the squeeze, conquering a handful of borough-specific uprising missions will reward you with an incredibly useful specialist from that part of town. I managed to get my hands on a getaway driver who could summon this sort of hotted-up hatchback that felt like it had somehow been crossbred with an F1 car. I also unlocked the Spy, a silenced pistol-packing James Bond type who could summon a rocket-spewing, invisibility-offering spy car.
You're it. Ready to go?
Naturally.
If I see you again, you're dead.
With these wankers.
Is this really necessary?
Worthless shite.
Watch yourself.
Shut your mouth. Get on with your life.
You're fucking brain dead, aren't you?
All units, I say again, all units. We have reports of a hostile received. Responding to the situation now.
Use a pursuit intervention technique.
This is taking longer than expected. Over.
Driving into the vehicle, over. Where did they go? Shit.
Control. We are still on the suspect. Over. Officer down!
Received. Calling back up to my location. Over. Control, I'm ready to immobilize the target. We have an injured position. Do something. Over.
Control, we need medical assistance at my location.
Went and crashed. Oh, I can't handle it.
Oh God, that's it. I'm ending this.
Now, it's also worth noting that while the playstyles and personalities of your recruited agents are rigid, you can still bend their abilities towards something you more prefer. By finding or earning tech points in the world, you can essentially purchase whiz-bang gadgets, like a commandeerable infiltrator spider bot, which you can eventually improve to have double jump, sprint, plus the ability to cloak. Now, if that spider bot doesn't give you a tingling sensation in your arachnads, you could try the combat spider bot. He comes with an automated turret and extra armor. The fun continues with an AR cloak that effectively gives your hero the world's best Predator cosplay. Also, fans of Marvel villain, the Shocker, might gravitate to the Electro Fist that can potentially be upgraded into a chain-killing spewer of sparks. In the same vein is the Electroshock Trap, which, once you slap it on a surface, will proximity detonate and EMP disable drones and any unfortunate Albion soldier in the vicinity. You can of course do that yourself via a series of hacks. The usual stuff like jamming their guns and making them have a seizure as you blast their earpieces with static. And when it comes to traditional weaponry, like I said, you can almost always rely on getting a non-lethal pistol, but if you're going to use that, you need to be super consistent with your headshots. Anything less, and you do more damage by taking the gun and feeding it to your enemy. And that's pretty much the same deal when it comes to non-lethal SMGs, which kick like a jackhammer and eat ammo like a fat kid will Skittles. Honestly, if you want to do some serious damage, best unlock the kamikaze missile drone, and while they're also non-lethal, you should not go past the shotgun and the vehicle one-shotting grenade launcher. Don't let the cheerful bumblebee paint job fool you. That thing is a monster. But I'm not done yet detailing the delicious fruits hanging from DeadSec's Q branch. You can earn upgrades like an AR shroud that lets you mask stiffs that you just killed in a takedown. I'd heartily recommend skin mesh body armor, not to mention a deep profiler that will allow the recruiting of DeadSec enemies. Plus, you can always rely upon the self-explanatory hacks like combat drone and turret deactivations. If you're not into turning things off, you can simply make Albion's drones, turrets, and counter-terrorist drones just go hammer on tongs on one another, like it's your own personal episode of Robot Wars. Last but not least, you can ruin some poor bastard's pizza order by just hacking one of the random delivery drones that zip about the city. Do that, and you'll create what is effectively your own rideable cloud.
Answering to Albion.
Yes, baby, yes!
Whoop whoop!
You poncy fucking cunt.
You alright?
What the fuck?
Fucking Albion scum.
Fool!
Fucked up.
Sit down and take a breath before you give yourself a fucking...
Shit, yeah.
Hey, just
Relax,
chill,
okay,
right?
mate? You need to calm down.
Hey, watch me. Watch me.
At all times. Failure to provide your optic.
Something tells me you want to help out the resistance.
Hey, you're dead sick, aren't you? Great timing. I need a hand with something.
We can try. What's the problem?
I don't know, something's not right. My friend's been missing for a week now. Left without saying goodbye or anything.
That's just horrible.
Yeah, it's just... Well, not to be a bitch or anything, but my friend is kind of an ass. It's very possible they were an ass with the wrong people.
Don't fret. We'll track them down.
Shit anymore.
Think you're tough, do you? What are you playing at?
In the end, I walked away loving my time with Legion. Despite the heavy themes, it doesn't take itself particularly seriously in a lot of spots. I mean, I'd go so far as to say there's some Saints Row style mayhem, and more than a little potty-mouthed humour. Better yet, the gunplay feels polished, and the vehicles you can jack all have their own sense of character. Likewise, the hacking puzzles feel cleverly put together and offer rewarding alternatives to simply kicking in the door and going in full bullet-tooth Tony. London herself feels like a living, breathing entity that's been beautifully crafted, if you could even say that about a dystopian hellhole. All that being said, while I'm a fan of the whole heroes from a cast of thousands concept, I could identify the strings of it every now and then. After 6 hours of play, I'd started to feel a teensy bit of deja vu with the recruitable classes that were being dangled in front of me. Likewise, my ears were starting to pick up on the same, or incredibly similar, voice actors getting shoehorned into NPC bodies that didn't feel like they were paired well. And on the topic of disconnects, I feel there's a danger with this procedural system and how it's going to impact quality storytelling. Now don't get me wrong, randomized heroes is an awesome idea on the action side of things, but will it also be conducive to consistently engaging exposition moments? Because I mean, you just look at something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and the dual protagonists of that game. Some people swear by one of the voice actors, others swear by the other one. Now multiply that by God knows how many other voice actors Ubisoft has used in this game. I mean, it's just a fact that some of them are going to nail certain moments in the story better than others. Speaking personally, I mean, there are a few moments in my playthrough where it felt like my favourite operative wasn't so much the driving force in the narrative, rather this sort of bit part player who was just slotted in at the last minute. I mean, the majority of the dialogue I heard was mostly well written, but there was the odd moment when it feels like your avatar is sort of dropping in soundbite responses to secondary characters who, weirdly, actually have far more permanence, background, and importance than you, the hero. And I'm also curious to see what the average Joe on the street thinks of the driving physics. The original Watch Dogs leaned more towards simulation, and the sequel dumbed it down towards arcade thrills. Now this is a polarizing topic for fans of the series, and I can tell you now that Legion definitely leans to Watch Dogs 2. Now, with my preferences, I always prefer realism replicated, but I'd also be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy throwing these electric-based hypercars around like they were running on rails. Bottom line, the fun factor is there. But I can see a heated debate forming on the horizon in a forum after launch. And hey, I wouldn't flag any of this stuff as a huge problem at this point in development. It's all just something to keep an eye on. In there. Truth be told, I'm still well chuffed by the Watch Dogs Legion experience. Come launch day, I reckon you'd be a right tosspot for not giving it a shot.
Fuck yes! I am full of hidden talents. Wonder if I should just retire on top.